I'm Corbitt with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, September the 10th, brought to you in part by Therapiece, that revolutionary product that is scientifically proven. Address the stress in your cattle. Are you trying to wean calves? A lot of people are. It is imperative that you use Therapiece to help those calves cope with the stress that they're undergoing. And and some of you may be queasy about poking extra holes in your calves. You don't have to stand up and say it or let anybody know. But if you're queasy about poking holes in your calves and you're giving all these shots and things, you literally just squirt it on their head and their nose. It is so easy. It's $3 a dose. You can't not use it, guys. For more information, go to Therapiece.com. Feeders limit down. We kind of knew this was coming. We didn't know what day. Monday they continued up your feeder cattle futures and live cattle futures as well, like nothing was going to happen. But it's everybody was curious about what happened in the feedlots last week, and then when we got confirmation about the implosion of the northern feedlot area trade, people started backing off of these cattle a little bit. We saw where your Nebraska and Iowa feedlot sales were lower. Your southern plains was higher. People were wondering about that. Amid these tight supplies, are we really getting cattle backed up in the northern plains? Yes, we are a little bit. Our placements have been so much higher up in the northern plains, and they've been so much lighter down in the southern plains. But when we got confirmation on that on Monday, you could kind of tell that a lot of the people that invest in cattle futures were backing off. These futures have been spoiling for a bust here for quite a long time, and every time we start to think it gets one, it don't. Well, we got one on Tuesday. Every single feeder cattle future contract except the last one offered, which is next September, was down the 9 1/4 limit. Ouch. We took them a long ways out, and in big losses on your live cattle too. $5, $6 plus up to $7 lower on your live cattle futures. I was in Beaver, Oklahoma on Tuesday at the Beaver County Stockyards. You could kind of tell the guys that are feeding cattle of their own, they didn't seem too upset about the board being down like that. They're still wanting their margin back that they've been pouring into the CME for months, probably, on cattle that they've had hedged, and kind of glad to see it down a little bit to get some of that margin money back. But man, these feeder cattle futures, I mean, they just tanked. And you could tell it in the sales, and the other people that I was talking to, they were at other sales, you could tell it, and you could tell it at Beaver County also. I got up and auctioneered for a couple hours. That gave me a unique perspective. The last 3 or 4 times I've been over there in the last several months, you start the cattle too high, hands go up, and you just take off. Everybody wanted them. It didn't really matter what they cost. Just keep rolling. It was different on Tuesday. You start the cattle, and then people, they're acting like they're not paying attention. They kind of look up with one eye, maybe they're not sure what they want to do. And typically you never have somebody come down on them until you'd backed up the first time, $5 or $10 or whatever, and then you take off. Now the cattle might go back up to steady money, and they had some really nice cattle on Tuesday, and they might go even further, especially the fancy balling calves that they had in there, and they had some really nice ones. They sold quite a bit higher than they have in recent weeks, and they had some really nice yearlings, and they would do that. But on those in-betweener cattle, the plainer cattle that didn't have the best condition, they'd start them down there, and they would quit on them before they got back up to where they've been the last few weeks. And then it was just like that everywhere. It was kind of tough around. But we'll see what happens this week. Was this the cliff, and we're not ever coming back? I don't think so. I think we're going to take a few weeks here and settle back down. Whenever we get later in the fall and we find out there's no calves left because they all sold them early, and cattle get really tight again, I think it could take off again and still be taken off this spring, because that's the best time of the market there. But it's going to be touch and go here for the next several weeks, and probably tough as we continue to go on, especially in October, when we get the sickness and the big temperature swings and all the balling calves and everything that goes with it. It could kind of be tough, guys. Tough for the way the market has been, not historically tough. You're still going to sell calves higher than you've ever sold them in the world. They just might not be at that tippy top price here that we've seen over the last several weeks here. I want to say something about the market there, and a lot of people kind of tried to make it political, and you liberals that watch this this report, you're going to love this. Donald Trump, my leader and my hero, and I thank God every morning that he is our president, and I think he's really getting things turned around, and he is working hard, getting a lot of things fixed with the border and crime, and getting some better trade with our people from around the world, these other countries that we trade with, and getting a lot of things straightened out. But I will criticize him on one thing. He doesn't know shit about agriculture. And I'm not being mean about that. He knows a lot of things about a lot of different things, but he doesn't know shit about agriculture. And he does pop off at the mouth sometimes, just like during the election when he was saying he would fix that Ukrainian-Russian war, you know, in the first 24 hours. Well, when he got into it, it was a lot tougher than that, and he has acknowledged that. Well, here a while back when he said, you know, eggs are going to get cheaper, well, they had already started producing more eggs, and it didn't take very long before the eggs did get cheaper. And of course, he was bringing energy down and making delivery prices and things like that cheaper. And so he just assumed if he keeps doing things the right way and working hard at it, that they would get cheaper. Well, in the last few days, I guess, he has said that beef is going to get cheaper. I don't know where he's seeing that. And the energy and the fuel costs, delivery prices and all that is such a minuscule thing on this higher beef. He's not going to be able to make that cheaper. Now, could he make some calls, you know, as president that would make that beef cheaper? Yes, but I do not think he is going to do that. You know, if he cut back on the tariffs to Brazil, bringing over their grinding meat, that would sure make beef get cheaper. But he is not going to do that. He's teaching Brazil a little lesson here, and but Brazil is sending a lot of their meat through Mexico and other places to get around the tariffs. He could crack down on that, but that's going to make beef even higher. If he opened up the border to Mexico, it would likely make the beef get cheaper here before long. I don't think he's going to do that either. I think the screwworm deal is scary enough. They don't want to play with that. But you know, he could do things with the USDA. But if you think about it, the USDA only exists for us to have cheap food. And just think about that, guys. Everything they do there, all the programs and everything, keep these producers or keep the production in place. It may not be as many producers as we've had, but we still got the production, all the programs. It's to keep food cheap. People think they live in a great country when their food is cheap and they don't have to spend a lot of their disposable income to pay for that food. And I think there's some things, or I know there's some things he could do that would bring the price of beef down some. I do not think he wants to do any of those things, and he hadn't shown any signs of wanting to do it. Now, just him saying that probably did have a little bit to do with the board crashing on Tuesday, but it did not have any effect on the price of beef. Your box beef cutout values did what they were going to do despite whatever happened. They were mixed. It was not a big knee-jerk reaction there, but that's one little bit I'm going to give for you Democrats there, despite my love for Trump. Let's talk about your board on Tuesday. October live cattle were down 562 at 230.17. December was down 640 at 231.17. Your back months on live cattle down $4.50 to down $7. September feeder cattle down 9 1/4, like I told you, all of them but one, 351.70. Now that September contract, usually when they go to jacking with these, we're in a bastard month. We're not here. They want to jacking with these, and we're well into September. That September contract is going to have to meet up with your CME cash feeder cattle index here in just a couple of weeks, guys. They've took it down to 351.70. Likely most people think it'll be down big on Wednesday. It might bounce back later in the session, but that 351.70 aligns with the CME cash feeder cattle index that's at 365.86. It's got to get back up there, or that feeder cattle index has got to drop a bunch here before the tail end of the month. So that's one thing that doesn't always happen whenever we have a crash. It's usually with that front month being a bastard month. But October feeder cattle down 9 1/4 also at 349.92. Now they can take that to zero if they want to before they have to pay the piper. But your back months were down 817. That was the last traded month there, and that's next September, like I said, to all the rest of them all down 9 1/4. Grains, December new crop down 3/4 cent at 4.19. November new crop beans down 3 1/4 cent a bushel at 10.28. Kansas City hard red winter wheat for December down 1.5 cents a bushel at 5.08 3/4. Your fats, or I ought to tell you about the limits that we were going to get into here on Wednesday. Feeder cattle limits on Wednesday are going to be 13.75. That'll take your hat off, guys. And I think that we had a live contract touch limit down also. They're going to be 10.75 here on Wednesday. I would not think that they would lock either way limit on Wednesday, but there's no way to tell what's going to happen with that thing. Your fat cattle trade, we did have some fed cattle trade, and the Northern Plains has given up already again. There's a lot more of them that trade. They trade a lot more cattle. They have leverage when they're trying to get the market up, when the things align for them. But there's a lot more people trading, and there's people that's given up. Iowa sold 2,400 already this week on Tuesday at 237 to 239. Now that's $5 lower there, $4 to $5 lower on live basis there. And that's tough on a Tuesday. Dress sales 375 to 382, about the same, several dollars cheaper there. Nebraska 5,000 head on Tuesday. Only live price I had was 238, and dress sales 375 to 382. Now Kansas and Texas, they're still short on market ready cattle. In fact, a good many of those cattle that they bought in Nebraska that I've heard of are going to get on trucks, and they are going to be hauled down to Kansas plants for slaughter. They would rather do that. They would rather pay the freight on those cattle from Nebraska down into Kansas rather than to take a chance on having to give steady or more money in the Southern Plains. That's what tells you their unfair trade practices right there going on with the packers. They'd rather pay that freight than pay it in the trade down there. Kansas and Texas, of course, sold nothing. They did have bids at 235, but the market's 242 to 243. They're not going to entertain those lower bids, and I still think the Southern Plains are likely to trade steady, and they're going to flip-flop on the northern feedlot area and become a premium to them. We did have our fat cattle auction that sets the market up in Yankton, South Dakota at Stockman's Livestock Market there. They had 1,200 in overnight and 2,400 in for their fed cattle auction, guys. Just think about having that many finished cattle in there for your sale. Conventional cattle sell from 235 to 240, 250. That's a premium to direct trade there, but still it was $4 to $5 lower. The extreme top was 246 conventional there, and that was on 33 head of 1,500 pounders, top quality. Didn't have enough drug-free cattle to have a test on the non-implanted cattle. They sold, and then there was no overlap. They sold at a considerable premium to the conventional cattle. They sell from 243.5 to 254, only a buck and a half cheaper. So they're really wanting those program cattle where they can find them. They did have 1,250 pound fed cattle that have been on feed going back for more feed from 268 to 270, 250. Box beef cutout values, like I told you earlier, were mixed. Choice cuts down 202 at 407.67. Selects up 162 at 386.96. Slaughter just up through your first 2 days of the week, 224,000 estimated cattle slaughter. Can't compare it to last holiday week, but compared to the same week a year ago, we're already 17,000 head behind. Talk about what else is going on. Brangus, you ought to check in to Brangus Genetics, guys. You still get your black hide, can be eligible for CAB there if they perform in the feedlot or in the cooler, I should say. But Brangus, built to last, built for business, and built for your herd. For more information there, go to gobrangus.com. Also, Performance Livestock Analytics. Performance Beef is software built by Performance Livestock Analytics that is as easy to use as your cell phone. It makes it easier to record your health data and to create break-evens and invoices. And don't forget, guys, Performance Livestock Analytics, if you're a subscriber of them, if they're working for you and you're paying for their services, you have access to all your historical data, and you can get a hold of them and they will help you retrieve that. For more information, go to performancelivestockanalytics.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance. They are working to protect your livelihood. Your real-time index after your sales had concluded on Tuesday, sitting at 362.52. That was down 232. So it did take, and that's a 7-day moving average, guys. So down 232 just from the addition of Tuesday's lower sales. Latest CME cash feeder cattle index sitting at 365.86. A couple of sales I want to tell you about. Well, one on Wednesday here is South Central Regional Stockyards in Vienna, Missouri. They got a special feeder cattle auction here on Wednesday. Some of the most attractive cattle that they have in central Missouri, south central Missouri, are going to be in Vienna on Wednesday, guys. You got to check them out. Go to DVAuction.com. Also coming up on Thursday, Stockman's Livestock Exchange in Dickinson, North Dakota. They've got their anniversary special, guys. They're going to have an awful nice offering about that, and I'll tell you more about that on our next visit. But your big sales on Tuesday, Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains, Missouri, sold 3,150 head. They had another 300 on their in-house video. They do with help from DVAuction. But the market, everybody knew how tough it was, but Dan Hill, guy helped train there, and he took the place of the best auction market reporter that I ever worked with. His name was Dave Smith, my late friend there, and he was the best auction market reporter I ever worked with. He did such a good job, and Dan Hill, I think, is about one of the best now. He does such a good job reporting that market. He said, yeah, it was tough all around. Everybody talking about how tough it was, but actually it wasn't a complete disaster. The market was still pretty good. Feeders were $2 to $4 lower. From the levels they were at. That's not bad at all. $2 to $4 lower. Calves he called very uneven, from $6 lower to $6 higher. All depended on whether they were weaned or not, or if they just had shots, or had quality, or condition. There's so many variables on the calves, guys. He did say peewee calves were sharply lower. It's very dry in south central Missouri, and the trailers were backed up there Tuesday morning for the sale at Ozarks Regional Stockyards, guys. Another sale, Beaver County Stockyards, the sale I was at, they had 5,500 feeders in after 1,100 cows on the Monday, but the market was very uneven there. All had to do with quality and condition. Actually, the unweaned calves were the fanciest that come through the ring, and they were really top quality and had their shots, and they sold higher. Those balling calves sold higher. A lot of that to do with quality, and some of the yearlings on offer, load lots of yearlings, were better than they had recently had, and the condition was outstanding on them, and they sold fully steady. But a lot of the in-betweeners, the ones lacking the condition, the way up, the flesh condition, the quality, some of those were, maybe $10, maybe $15 lower. That's just the way the market was. Beaver was your Superior Steel Sales, home of Superior Standard cattle equipment, stick out sale of the day. You look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central, and you see your best tested weights here. Let's go through them. 275 head of 4-weight steers in Beaver, average 442 at 473.92. Your 672 head of 5-weight steers, average 553 with a weighted average price of 432.43, and that included the fanciest calves of the day, 71 head off the Sneed Pool Ranch down there in the northern Texas Panhandle. They weighed 581, the blacks and black baldies, and bring 466 right off the cow. Wow. 404 head of the 6-weight steers, average 644 at 385.30. 375 head of the 7-weight steers, average 728 at 379.44. 635 head of the 8-weight steers, averaged 830 at 361.21. And 392 head of the 9-weight steers, averaged 938 at 339.71. The heifers, 236 head of 4-weight heifers, averaged 458 at 413.84. 430 head of the 5-weights, averaged 537 at 385.79. There were 257 head of 6-weight heifers, averaging 643 at 339.93. And 1,045 head of 7-weight heifers there that averaged 752 with a weighted average price of 346.05. Now I'll give you the top quote on some balling calves there at Beaver. The top quote on some yearlings, and they were light yearlings, likely going back to graze somewhere, but the condition and quality was outstanding on these. 148 head, weighed 700 pounds on the dot, and bring 406. Look at some other quotes, outstanding quotes from all around. Unionville Livestock Market in Unionville, Missouri. They had a special there on Tuesday in Unionville. It included the Rockin' R's. That's one of our favorites. They're backgrounded cattle, but they feed like they're green guys. Those guys know how to do it, and they leave the good in them. They had 3 loads of those Rockin' R's there at Unionville. There was 185 of them. The 3 loads averaged 878 pounds. They were very uniform, with an average price on the loads of $365.25. Wow. How about Bluegrass Stockyards in Lexington, Kentucky? That's their main location there. I heard from Phil Webb. He was excited how his cattle sold. 60 head of steers, weighed 821 out in Kentucky through the ring, bring 363. How about Kingsville Livestock Auction in Kingsville, Missouri? That's west central Missouri. They sold some heifers really high. 72 head of feeder heifers, weighed 722 at 369.50. And the most outstanding quote that I saw anywhere on Tuesday, and your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Bowman Livestock Marketing in Bowman, North Dakota, our most recent addition to the DVAuction broadcasting barns there. They were having their anniversary barbecue special, as I mentioned, one of our recent visits there. But in Bowman, North Dakota, they sold 123 steer calves, weighed 424 and bring 570. And that's your feeder flash for Wednesday.